Okay. Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. Thank you so much for joining here today. My name is Otis Landerholm, and I'm the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. And thank you for being here with me, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. Today, our theme that I want to talk about is uncommon I-130s. All right, and these are family-based options that you shouldn't forget about. And so welcome and thank you for being here. Remember that the Empowered Immigrant Live is here to train, teach, inspire, and empower immigrants to make the most out of immigration laws and to make the most out of their lives. Today, our theme is uncommon I-130s. And so as I'm talking about that theme, if you have questions, please feel free to submit your questions. I'll do my best to answer them right here, right now, live. And what are I-130s? We're talking about family-based immigration options. If you want to help somebody in your family, right? Or if you are an immigrant and you have family members that want to help you, like, let's talk it through. Let's get clear on what those options are. My question, as always, is do you want to get a green card this year? Do you want to get asylum? Do you want to get a U visa, VAWA, some kind of solution to your immigration situation this year? Because if so, go for it. All right? And I'd love to help you with that. My firm is on a mission to win 10,000 immigration cases by 2035, 10,000 immigration cases in the next 10 years, and we would love for your case to be one of them. All right? So thanks everybody for being here. And now we're talking about I-130s. I'll jump right into it. Yesterday, I'll tell you a story. Yesterday I was on a call with a client, and we just won his wife's green card. All right? And it was a long, slow process for the wife. She had a sibling who petitioned for her years and years and years ago, and now she has finally won her green card. And now her husband wants to get a green card through his wife, but it won't work for them for various reasons, all right? It won't work for him until his wife wins her citizenship case. So they'll have to wait 5 years in the future, at least, for the wife to be able to petition, and not to be able to petition, but for the husband to be able to use the petition of the wife without leaving the United States. All right? But he wants to get a green card now, if possible. And so I'm going through the options. I'm in a consultation, and I'm explaining that it's not possible at this time, given your situation, given the procedural history, it's not going to work. And I start asking about other options. You know, is there a qualifying crime for, have you ever been the victim of some kind of assault or abuse, harm, attack? Okay, no. Okay, so there's no U visa. Ever been in a relationship that was abusive? No. Okay, so there's no VAWA. Ever been afraid for your life to return to your home country? No. Okay, no asylum. Okay, we ask lots of questions about that. Do you have any children? No, no children that can petition for me. But wait a second. Wait a second. Does your wife have a child? Yeah, my wife does have a child from a previous relationship. It's not through our marriage. But wait a second. Is your wife's child a U.S. citizen? Yes, he is. Well, how old is he? He's 22. Okay, interesting. And how old was he when the two of you got married? He was 17 when the two of you got married. Okay, interesting. Listen to me, all right? Listen to me. The law says that a stepson can petition for a stepfather as long as the marriage between the stepfather and the mother happened before the child turned 18. Okay? And so, yes, as long as the stepson is on board, as long as the stepson is willing to go through this process, then yes, there actually is a way right now. We could get you a green card and apply for it right now. Got it? And it's like, okay, sometimes we forget that there are these uncommon options through family that can sometimes change the strategy in a case. And so what I want to talk about are the uncommon I-130s. All right, so what is an I-130, first of all? All right, who knows? An I-130 is a petition. All right, it's not an application for a green card. It's a petition. It says, hey, I am a U.S. citizen, or I am a green card holder, and I am in a relationship with, or I am related to this person, this relative, spouse, parent, sibling, child. All right? Let's go through them relationship by relationship. Did you know U.S. citizens can petition for the following people? All right, you win your citizenship. Who can you petition for? You can petition for spouses, children who are unmarried and under 21. Quickly, you can petition for them. Parents and fiancés, and those are the quicker of the processes. And then slow cases, you can do children over 21 or children who are married and siblings. And siblings take years and years and years, depending on which country. It could take 20 years in some instances. Okay? And so those are the people that U.S. citizens can petition for. It can change the game for people. All right? Green card holders, you just won your green card. Who can you petition for? You can petition for spouses and unmarried children. Okay? That's what you got to know. And so what I want to talk about in a little bit more depth, and then we'll open it up for questions, is I want to talk about children. What does this word mean, children? All right? Well, the term child is a term of art in immigration law. So your child means a person who is under 21 and unmarried, right? And what they're typically talking about is biological children. So if you are the parent of a biological child born in wedlock, great, all right? That's a pretty easy petition. If you are the parent of a biological child born out of wedlock, you might need a DNA test to prove it's your child. It is much simpler typically if you're the mother. For a father, you have to show that you took steps to recognize that child before the child's 18th birthday. Okay? For stepchildren, yes, stepchildren also count. The thing that you have to show for stepchildren is that the marriage creating the stepchild-stepparent relationship must have happened before the child turned 18. All right? What about adoption? Adopted children can count too, as long as the adoption was correctly done, which is complicated, all right? And as long as the adoption was complete before the child turned 16, then now the child, if they're a U.S. citizen now, they can petition for you. Okay? That's what I wanted to share today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me go through that. If you have family situation, if you have family members who want to help you get a green card, like talk it through, think about it, right? To have a consultation, let's talk it through. Let's see if it can be done. Sometimes it can change the game. All right? So for everybody who's tuning in, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate each of you. My name's Otis Landerholm. I'm the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. What questions are out there? All right? Let me know. Let me know if you have any questions. And if you don't, then we'll keep our episode short and sweet here today. You know, as you're thinking of filing an immigration case, it's a scary time in the world right now. All right? There's a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment in the world right now, and it's horrible. All right? It's horrible. And our politicians need to change, and they need to open up, and they need to understand that immigrants are actually amazing human beings. All right? And it's like, as we're facing this kind of aggression or this kind of opposition to our cases, we've got to be cautious. We've got to be professional. We've got to do an outstanding job in the preparation of our cases. And so really, when there's like these more complex arguments that we're submitting in a case, let's do it well. All right, let's do it. Don't do this alone. Do it with an attorney who knows what they're doing. Figure out every way to maximize your chances of success so that you can get this immigration situation over and done with. You can get the freedom that you're looking for in the form of, a green card or whatever immigration document or status you're looking for. And let's go for that. All right? So that's really all I've got here today. It looks like we've got one question. Let's see. Efren Martinez, you say, good morning. Minor theft convictions as a permanent resident. Am I at any kind of risk, even for renewing my green card? Okay. Good question. Thank you for asking this. There is something called the petty offense exception. There is something called... it's the petty offense exception. It often wouldn't put your green card at risk, even though even minor theft offense could very well be a quote-unquote crime involving moral turpitude. It might not trigger deportability in your case. So here's the thing, Efren Martinez, thank you for asking this question. First of all, you're not alone in asking it. Here's the first thing. A lot of people hear of the Laken-Riley Act. All right? The Laken-Riley Act says that people with theft convictions, even minor theft convictions, are subject to mandatory detention. But the Laken-Riley Act is not talking about permanent residents. The Laken-Riley Act is talking about people who are undocumented in the U.S. All right? So don't worry about that if that's your concern. You are not subject to mandatory detention. People are not going to come and detain you. Show them your green card. You have a legal green card. If there's an allegation that you have violated your green card, right, then they can issue a notice to appear and you could fight that case in front of a judge. My best advice, though, is that before deciding to travel outside the U.S. or before deciding to file for citizenship, for example, get a detailed consultation with an attorney who can really review the record. All right, you want to really be cautious and look at the record carefully so that you can get good advice about it. But otherwise, I think, I don't want you to worry about the Laken-Riley Act and mandatory detention provisions. What I want you to worry about is, should you travel outside the U.S. with a theft conviction, or should you apply for citizenship? Don't do either of those things without first getting a detailed consultation with an attorney who can really look at the precise language in the records that you have. Okay? All right. So DM, I see your question here. You say, I have DACA. I went out of the country with parole in Maryland, and they are taking off the CDL. So you have a CDL, a commercial driver's license. They're taking off the CDL. What do you mean? I don't know. I don't understand what you mean by that. They're taking it away from you? Why? Did you have a criminal conviction or a DUI or something? So I would need more information, DM, to understand your full question. But thank you for asking it nonetheless. Everybody with DACA, there's news happening with DACA. All right? Everybody with DACA status, there was a proposed settlement submitted in court last Monday. All right? There was a proposed settlement. There was an opposition filed. The judge is considering all of these things and will very likely issue a decision before the end of the month of October. Okay, so be mindful of that. All right, the next question I see, I think it's the last question I've gotten so far, is Sky High Solutions. Thank you. You say, are U.S. citizens being detained at airports? I have a previous dismissed DV case. All right, thank you for asking this question. I mean, U.S. citizens could be detained at airports if you're doing something bad in the airport, but no, you're not being, like, they can't deport you if you're a U.S. citizen, right? And so, I mean, they have done that, and you can sue them if they were to do that. And so they're not being detained by immigration at airports. All right, U.S. citizens might be detained if you, like, I don't know, smuggle drugs or firearms or something into the airport. But otherwise, no. A dismissed DV case will not cause an issue for a U.S. citizen traveling. Okay? I hope that's helpful. All right, Michal, I see your question here. All right, I have a U.S. citizen wife. All right, and my mom and dad are LPRs. They keep denying my wife's I-130 because of the prior marriage 204C. What can be done? All right, so thank you for being here and thank you for asking this question. And you're not alone in this question. Really appreciate your being here. What can be done? So we want to challenge, whenever there's an allegation of a 204C fraud finding, that there is an allegation that there was, quote unquote, marriage fraud in the past, we want to work together and we want to do what we can to try to challenge that 204C fraud finding. All right? Because marriage fraud causes all kinds of problems for an immigration case. And so if there's an allegation of marriage fraud in the past, what that does is it makes it impossible for you to get a new petition through a valid marriage approved today. And so what we've got to do is we've got to challenge that finding. And whether that's through the appeal process or the motion to reopen process or federal litigation perhaps, right? We've got to do what we can to push the government on that issue, all right? In order to find a 204C fraud finding, marriage fraud finding, the government is supposed to have, quote unquote, substantial and probative evidence. Those are the key words. They're supposed to have substantial and probative evidence that a person entered a relationship solely for the purposes of immigration law. Right? Of like getting a green card, not because they were in love, not because they wanted to form a life together. No, they just got married to get a green card to evade immigration laws. All right? And so we got to look carefully at the records. Like, was there substantial and probative evidence? Was there really? Because if they didn't have substantial and probative evidence, we need to fight about it. Okay? And so thank you for asking that question, and that's what needs to be done. All right, so path divergence. Are your naturalization applications getting processed in a timely manner? Are you seeing delays? You know, the truth is that actually, yes, they are being processed in a timely manner. We are seeing NATS applications going relatively quickly right now. And so, you know, 6 to 8 months often we're seeing NATS cases adjudicated, interviews happening, and we're winning cases, right? I think we have 2 more interviews just tomorrow, or maybe they're coming up next week. Actually, are the 2 that I'm thinking of, and so yeah, they're moving. All right, they're moving. So let's see. I see a couple of other questions here. N. Rod, you say I was detained as a resident back from Mexico for 2 hours because of my name is common. You know, that's really frustrating. I'm sorry to hear that happened. It's frustrating. It's fairly common when there are name matches of people on no-fly lists, when there are name matches. We see this a lot with our Middle Eastern clients, right? And so where there are name matches, common names that maybe are in some kind of database, or maybe there's ties to some kind of organization or something like that, then it can cause delays, for sure. It can cause delays. So Julio Mejia, and just coming back to that last question, there are some things that can be tried to try to, clarify that issue. You know, and U.S. trip is a process that people can go through. Um, U.S. trip. What does it stand for? I forget. Let me pull it up real quick. It's like travel inquiry. Let's see. U.S. trip. What does it stand for? No, 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 no. I'll need to. I'll need to. I'll need to do this on a separate. Yeah, because it's such a weird term. Is it USA trip? Yeah, no, I'm sorry, it's not coming up. It's such a, you Google trip and now all of a sudden all these tour packages and they want to sell me a vacation, and so no, it's an acronym. It stands for like Travel Redress Inquiry Process, TRIP, something like that. And anyway, it's a process. We could look that up for you and help you through that process if you want to try to get your name off of some kind of a no-fly list or something like that. All right, we saw that a lot more after the 9/11 towers and the whole terrorism threats and stuff were happening. We saw a lot of people be put on these like lists, and it still happens a lot. But anyway, wanted to share that. Okay, Julio Mejia, I see your question here. I was convicted of a DUI. I'm a permanent resident. Can I go out of the country and come back? As long as it was a normal DUI, and by that I mean driving under the influence of alcohol, not drugs. Driving under the influence, you were pulled over, but there was no crash, nobody was hurt, nobody was killed, it wasn't manslaughter, it wasn't no aggravating factors. If that's the situation, then yes, have a safe trip, have a nice trip. If it's just one, also, yeah, you can travel with a green card, even with a DUI. The best advice is to have the record of conviction with you, certified record of conviction with you in your possession when you travel, just so that if the Border Patrol, if the official in the airport, when they're reviewing your green card, if they ask questions, you could show them the certified records, show that it's paid off, show that you complied with whatever was ordered for you, and that and they should allow you back in without issue. All right. Holly Mom 7, I see your question here. My U.S. citizen son will send a petition. I came with a visa. I have two nolle prosequi, wasn't prosecuted offenses from 2006. I got that. So thank you, Holly Mom 7. Thank you for being here. Thank you for asking your question. Best advice is to look carefully at those with an attorney before filing your case, because the government will ask about it, right? They'll ask about each of them, what happened, what's the police report say, etc. And so we'll need to clarify that. But I'm glad that they didn't continue with the prosecution. People are supposed to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and so they should not affect your case. They should not make you inadmissible. There are some exceptions, though. If they were drug-related, that can cause an issue. If they were misrepresentation-related, those can cause an issue. Not because of the crimes in them, but there are things that cause inadmissibility, even if they're not crimes. And so those are things that you got to watch out for. All right? Talk those things through with a lawyer so that you get good advice as to how to best present your case. Okay? Enrod, I already answered that one. Let's see. Rewards loyalty. Thank you for being here. You say a judge grants my I-485 and my 212H waiver in court. I got my green card. Should I be worried when traveling? Good. So you got your green card. That's good. You should be completely eligible to travel. All right. And they're going to look at your record. And so if there was a 212H waiver, which a 212H waiver waives criminal records, you will want to travel with the judge's order granting your 212H waiver. Because if they stop you and if they say, hey, wait a second, there's this crime, you want to show them, yeah, you're right, there was this crime, but I got it waived. The judge actually granted my waiver, and here it is, and here's my green card, let me in, please. And they should be fine to do that. Okay? So, very good, very good. Katiposa, I see your question here. Hi, how can I obtain my travel record? Good question. There's a few different strategies for doing that. If you always traveled with a visa and a passport, you can go online to cbp.gov. CBP stands for Customs and Border Patrol.gov, or you could just do a Google search. CBP, and what you're looking for is the I-94. That's right. I-94 travel record. And you can put your passport information in, and your name, and your date of birth, and your country of birth, and you should be able to get all your travel history right there online through the cbp.gov. If you didn't use a visa every time, if you didn't use a valid legal source of entry every time, there are other things that we can do, and that's getting a little bit more tricky. We run what we call FOIAs, which stands for the Freedom of Information Act, and one of the agencies that we send FOIAs to is what's called OBIM, and OBIM stands for the Office of Biometrics and Identity Management. Office of Biometrics and Identity Management. And sometimes certain travel in and out where they take your photograph, for example, in the airport, or for example, where they take your fingerprints, for example, if anybody's caught crossing the border, those things are tracked through that office, the OBIM office, and we can run an OBIM FOIA and request those records. Okay? Hope that's helpful. And if you want help doing that, feel free to reach out, all right? Our office does that regularly. UD, I see your question here. If my permanent residency card has been expired for 10 years, can I still renew it? Yes, you can. All right? Yes, you can. Fun fact, when a person is a lawful permanent resident of the United States, they are a lawful permanent resident, meaning their status is permanent. It does not expire. All right? The card will expire. All right? The card has an expiration date. All right? Actually, some really, really old green cards don't have expiration dates. But nevertheless, right now, all green cards have expiration dates. It's the card that will expire, but the status doesn't. And so as long as you still have the status, you can renew your green card, and you do that on Form I-90. You might also be eligible to apply for citizenship. Okay? But renew your green card, it's a good thing to do. And if you want help with that, feel free to call in. You know, we help people do that too if you have any questions or doubts. And of course, there are sometimes risks to renewing your green card if you have certain criminal records, for example, if there's red flags in your case, if there was fraud in your case, etc. If you're deportable for some reason, then renewing a green card can be tricky and risky. And so you want to be mindful of that. But otherwise, otherwise you should be okay. All right. Herrera Luis. All right, I see your question here. Can I be a joint sponsor as the beneficiary? I have DACA, so I'm able to work, but my wife doesn't. I make enough income. So, and your wife is the beneficiary of a different family member petitioning for her, but you have DACA. Yeah, you can, actually. You can. Yeah, normally I'd be like hesitant about it, but no. Yeah, in your situation, you're 100% legally, like your income is 100% lawful, so that's good. The I-864, what are the regulations there? Let me just double check that real quick. Because you might have to be Bear with me. I'm looking in the instructions. Bear with me. This is a good question. The relative must also be a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or a lawful permanent resident. Okay? So I misspoke. Herrera Luis, thank you for asking this. You make enough income, but if you're not a U.S. citizen, U.S. national, or lawful permanent resident, you cannot sign the I-864. Okay? Oh, you're saying you're the beneficiary. She's the one petitioning for you. Oh, but she doesn't meet the income requirements. Okay, that might be slightly different. That might be slightly different. My best advice there is to not do that. My best advice there is to have, ask her parents, find someone else who's a U.S. citizen, green card holder, who is willing to include their income on the I-864. That's my best advice. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Kati Posa, I want to apply for citizenship, but I have some issues about my name because it's from a different state, ID, something like that. Cool. I mean, I see that. There's name issues all the time in a case. All right? There's name issues all the time in a case, and so if if we need to clarify that, or put your current legal name, but then include like other names that have been used in the past in your case, we do that all the time. All right? The first step is to start with a consultation. We can really look and figure out what's going on, figure out what the precise legal name ought to be, and then go forward there and figure out how to correct the records in the past, etc., if we need to. All right, folks, this has been a great episode. Thank you all so much for all your participation. Thank you for sending all your questions in. Really appreciate each of you. My name's Otis Landerholm. I'm the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C., where we fight for your American dream. I hope you're doing well. If this content was useful, please take a moment, go to our channel in YouTube, all right? And in YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, and when you do that, you can receive a notification whenever we upload an additional video with news, announcements, updates, things of that nature. And regardless of what platform you're on, please give us some love, likes, hearts, whatever you've got. And thank you so much for joining in. All right, these live sessions are a pleasure for me to be here, and I love talking about immigration law with each of you. And it means a lot more when you're here and when you're engaged, asking me questions, things of that nature. It makes it a lot more fun for me. Makes it better content for everybody. All right? So thank you all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time on our next episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. Thanks a lot, folks. Make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.